Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. If folks don't understand your messaging, the marketing for your private practice could be falling as flat as a souffle that drops when you take it out of the oven. Now, souffles are supposed to do that, but your marketing should not. Today's episode will give you some ideas on getting more clarity into your messaging so that it moves people to take action with you. Let's get to it. Practitioners like you deserve a thriving practice helping your clients live long, healthy lives. I'm Colaiacovo, marketing strategist for practitioners and dietitians, and I'm here to tell you that marketing your private practice shouldn't be complicated or take hours a day. I help bring the joy back to running your practice with simple marketing plans that actually get you clients so you can spend your time doing more of what you love. The Marketing Your Private Practice podcast shares actionable strategies and time-saving tips that build your confidence and skills when it comes to marketing. Learn to spend less time on your marketing, how to attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Does your messaging move people to action to take that next step with you? If not, or you're not sure, this episode is for you. Messaging is a key component when marketing your private practice. Yet folks often stumble on having a clear message that people understand. And it can be a challenge. And by no means am I perfect, but I definitely do strive to perfect my message as much as possible. Messaging will move people to action when it is effective. And that is whether the messaging happens online, in text, in video, in audio, via email, on social media, or even in person. No matter what medium your messaging happens on or in, there's one thing it will need in all situations, and that is clarity. Simple, clear messaging. That's the kind of messaging that moves people to action, and that's what you want your marketing messages to do for your private practice. Clarity when you're talking to folks is critical. You never want to leave people wondering what you do or what services that you offer, and that's why that clarity is so critical. You never know where your next client may come from, and that means wherever the opportunity arises, you want to be confident when you're telling people about you and how you help people and what services you offer. But this can be a challenge for some practitioners, and really it's a challenge for many business owners, especially when you're in the moment and you're talking to folks face-to-face or even on Zoom in a networking group there, or maybe you're in a Facebook group. That can often be where we mess up when you need to be clear and concise when you're sharing that message, live and in the moment. Even the simple task of telling others who you are and how you help people. This has to be clear when you say it. But sometimes when the pressure is on, it can be hard to share that message with clarity. We all get performance anxiety. But that's why I like to have a cheat sheet that I use, and I keep my messages at the ready, and I use it to practice them as well. Things like calls to action for my lead magnets or my programs, my elevator pitch when I'm in a meeting or a networking event, one-liners, or simply saying who I am and what I do for a living. I call this cheat sheet my CTA doc, call to action document. And I do this because I totally get performance anxiety and I flub things up all the time. I do practice them and I do have versions of them so that I can make sure that I'm as ready as possible to clearly and concisely share what I do and how I help people when the need arises. And I do this because I have learned that practicing my messaging and saying it out loud is key to getting to a comfortable place of being able to do this whenever it's needed. I learned this when I first started my business back in 2008. I actually took a program when I started in business, an amazing program called the Self-Employment Benefits Program. And it was run by a local business here in Nova Scotia called CEED, C-E-E-D, or Centre for Entrepreneurship, Education and Development. Now, this SEB program, this Self-Employment Benefits Program, it is a unique Canadian program supported by the government, and it's available in many provinces across the country. And anytime I mention it to Canadians, they generally know someone who did it. They may have done it themselves. Americans and others, when they hear about it, they only wish that they had it in their countries. But what the SEB program did, and still does to this day, because people are still taking it and it's still running, is it helps people that are looking to start their own business, and it gives them the support and resources they need, including financial support, to start a business and be successful at it. Now, they have lots of requirements to join, and it typically involves having been on unemployment insurance, either for a job situation or maternity leave, or in my case, I was actually going to be going on unemployment because I was quitting a job where we lived because we were moving for my husband's work. So someone told me about the program. Actually, when I think about it, she was the one who told me to start my own business too. Big shout out to Lynn Connolly in Charlottetown, PEI. She actually recognized something in me and gave me some advice, and I'll never forget it because she suggested I start a particular type of business. And she told me all about this SEB program because she worked in career counseling over in Prince Edward Island. And really what it came down to is she recognized something in me, a trait that she thought would make me a great business owner, something I didn't even know was there. And that gave me the confidence to follow her advice. So I applied after we moved and got settled in. I joined the program, and it really is an awesome program. It supports the participants for 40 weeks with income from the unemployment program that we have with the government. And by getting that income, you have to take part in the required activities, the training, and work with an advisor, with the end goal being at the end of the 40 weeks, your business should be up and running or darn close to it, and you can grow and sustain it yourself. It's really a win-win program for everybody. But part of the required activities that we had to do, some of them were tasks like creating a business plan and a marketing plan. We had to attend bi-weekly business training sessions where they taught us a variety of different areas of lessons that would help us in business. We had to report in on the tasks and the activities we're doing to our business advisor. And one of those activities was what I like to call forced networking. So you had to attend and go to 2 networking events every month, and it was mandatory. And back then in 2008, most of it was in person too. I had a virtual business when I started my business, but few people back then were virtual. Zoom wasn't even a thing at the time, and social media was just kicking off as a business tool, and people were still doing a lot of networking in person. I'm telling you, I did the networking because it was part of the program and I really wanted to succeed, but honestly, I hated it at the beginning. My anxiety and fear of speaking in social and other situations meant I never wanted to do this. I never wanted to go to these networking events at all, but my funding in the program depended on it, so I had to do it. I overcame the fear and I met and connected with new people every couple weeks. As much as I hated it, I did it because I wanted to succeed in business. And let me just say, I had a real issue still at that time speaking and talking to strangers. I actually have fainted while talking to groups before. And my anxiety when I was younger was so much that I dropped out of university because of it. It held me back for years. But as I got older, and I had kids and I got involved in groups to support my kids, I learned to overcome some of the issues in order to advocate for them and for others. I took on leadership roles in nonprofits and some of the associations the kids were part of. And soon I was speaking like a pro. And once I started my business, a couple years down the road, I was actually being paid to speak. So I totally get the fear that a lot of people have in doing networking, but I also believe it is something that helped build my business back then. I always had a saying, When you want to start doing your marketing and networking online, start local and go global, okay? But back in 2008, that fear was really still there a little bit. And I really wanted to make my business work. So I got into these groups and I did the networking that they required. And I have to tell you, I am so happy it was actually part of the process because I gained so much from that forced networking. So what I did was I joined a networking group that was it was called back then a business breakfast club. It's kind of like what they call or refer to Business Networking International today. So it's a type of networking group or a business group where people join by category of business. So if they have one real estate agent, nobody else can join. If they have one dietitian, nobody else can join. If they have one, at the time I was a virtual assistant, nobody else could join. So you were limited in the types of people there. And it was a lot about referring business to each other. But every week we did a roundtable. We had to do our elevator pitch, stand up and say it in front of everybody. And we also took turns doing 10-minute presentations to the group and sharing information about our businesses and our services. So that really and truly helped me get very comfortable in saying my elevator pitch, introducing myself, and even sharing a little bit more about my services and business and how I could help people. Now, 14 years later, business is still good, and I have had some amazing opportunities because I got comfortable with my messaging, with telling people who I am and what I do for a living, and how I help folks. Getting comfortable with the messaging has helped my business grow phenomenally. And the reason is because when you have effective messaging, that's how you're going to be able to move people to action. Messaging is one of the 4 pillars of marketing that I teach in the Thrive Marketing Academy. And there are 3 main areas in this one particular pillar of marketing, messaging, that you really want to hone in on and get clarity on so that whenever you're putting out a message, no matter what way you're putting it out there, that it is clear and it can help you reach more clients and grow your practice. So what I teach folks in the academy is all about these different pillars. And the messaging pillar of marketing includes 3 elements. So the first area is knowing your ideal client. Knowing who they are and what their problems are and what they're thinking about and what they're looking for is key to your messaging for sure. The second element of the messaging pillar is knowing your offer. What do you sell? What are your services? What are your programs? How do you help people? How does it help them? What problem do they have that you solve with your offer? So knowing that offer is key as well. And then the third one is a way to build leads and prospects for your business. So that is actually having some sort of lead magnet that attracts that ideal client to you and to your offer. And so this is where your messaging is so important. You need to have your messaging speaking to the ideal client, having clarity so that they know who you are and how you help people. But it also needs to be clear to others because you never know where a referral may come from. You may not be saying those messaging words to an actual potential client, but that person that you're telling or who's hearing your message may know somebody that would make an ideal client for you. So when you have these 3 elements nailed down, that's often when you're going to become more clear with your messaging and what you're putting out there with your marketing content and the messages that you do have is going to help move people into action. And knowing these 3 different areas helps you know what kind of message to say when the time comes, because having an opportunity to share your message can come in a variety of ways and places and times when you may never expect it. And that's kind of why I have that CTA doc so that I'm always thinking about it. I can look at it. I can refer to it before I go somewhere. I've practiced what I might want to say. It's just how I get prepared in particular for the in-person stuff because I still get nervous about it. But when it comes to networking and talking to people in particular, there are 3 areas where clarity in your messaging has to be pristine. It has to be crystal clear. This is so important for you. These 3 areas are speaking to people and basically anywhere and everywhere when you're introducing yourself, Whenever you have an opportunity to share your elevator pitch, that's another area where having clarity is key with your messaging. Maybe you're at a meeting or in a networking event, and there's other places that opportunity may come up for you to do kind of your official elevator pitch, so to speak. And then the third area where clarity in your messaging has to be clear is in calls to action that you put out there. And that typically is going to be in your marketing, but sometimes it could be when you're talking to people as well. Giving people a message on how they can take a next step with you and how they can learn more about you or how they can talk to you or how they can work with you. Putting out that call to action. And I do think it's important for all practice and business owners to be able to say or write and talk about each one of these three things with ease. You can start by building your comfort level by starting small. And when I talk about starting small with your messaging, what I mean there is really being able to clearly tell someone who you are, what your business is, and what services you offer. And I know it may seem simple, but these three things, who you are, what your business is, and what services you offer, can make or break your messaging sometimes. Now, you can ramp it up a little by adding in two more items. The kind of client you work with, meaning your ideal client, and how you help people or what your work does for them, what transformation they get by working with you. Now, number 4 and 5 there, those last two can take some time to develop. It's why in the Thrive Marketing Academy, I have an entire module of training on each one of these three messaging pillars, the know your client, know your offer, and creating a lead magnet that attracts. Because getting those down pat is going to be really key to what your messaging is going to do for you and how clear you can say it or write it or put it out there in online content for people to read. But sometimes it can be a real challenge to get that clarity in how you help people and who you are and what you do. So that's why I think you should start small and build that clarity in by just being able to do the who you are, what your business is, and what services you offer, and then get into adding more about the ideal client and the transformation. And I'm going to share an example because it really can be hard for some people to get this clarity. But I was once at a conference in the US in Fort Lauderdale, and we were at groups at tables, and one of our activities was to get to know one another. And it was just to simply share with the group your name, your business name, where you're from, and the services you offer. And they had it on a sheet that you could kind of look at so you knew what you had to say, and it was very clear. I like these because I think they're an easy intro, especially at groups like this. When I've run and been part of conferences, that's what we've done as well. Because sometimes when people try to get into the ideal client and what makes an ideal client and the transformation, if you're new to this, it can be a real challenge for you. Sometimes for those of us who've been doing it for a long time, it can be a challenge too. And that's why I like to practice this a little bit before I go to certain events where I know I'm going to have to do this. So back at this conference, we had to share this 4 things in this activity. And sometimes this is where you really have to think about, you just have to say what they're asking for and be really clear. In this case, all they wanted us to share was our name, our business name, what city or province or state we were from, and the services we offer. Now, one of the folks at my table had a dog walking service. I can tell you what she did now, but only because we all talked in depth about this afterwards. When it was her turn for this exercise, she could not clearly state what services she offered. She tried to get overly creative, and none of us, I'm dead serious here, not one person out of the other 7 people at the table understood what services she offered. And yes, I'm telling you, she had a dog walking service. Very clear when you say that. But what happened was she kind of went off tangent, and instead of saying what her services were, she started to talk about more about the transformation, but it just wasn't clear and nobody really understood because she didn't add anything in to clarify who she was doing this for. So she talked about how she helped, what she did for clients, help them be happier and have less stress and peace of mind because she got them out there every day. And it got long and confusing, and we were really all totally confused. And seriously, she walked dogs for a living. I mean, I've had a couple clients that have had this same service, and I think it's a great business to have. And a lot of them are very successful because it's a very needed service. But if you have a dog walking service, it should never be that hard to tell people those 4 things. But sometimes when you're not used to sharing that message with clarity, it can be a challenge. And that's why getting comfortable in sharing your message is important. And it's why I think practicing it is important as well. Clarity is critical when it comes to messaging. If I were doing this at the table again, I would say something like, "Hi, everyone. My name's Kathy Colaiacovo. My business is pepperatmarketing.com, and I offer my clients marketing, coaching, and training services in group programs and one-on-one. And I'm from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada." That's what I would say for those 4 things. I don't get into the type of clients and how it helps them because that's what we weren't supposed to share in this particular instance. And you will run into that situation sometimes where that is all you should share because everybody has a certain amount of time and we want to get through the whole big group and everybody needs to take that moment and share. And the last thing you want to be, if you ask me, is that person who just goes on and on and on, and then everybody's kind of rolling their eyes because they've taken way more than their 30 seconds that everybody had to share their elevator pitch. So in that particular situation, it really made me appreciate that you have to be able to easily share that same simple message in any situation, because sometimes it is going to be appropriate. And let me just say my mantra again. Clarity is critical when it comes to messaging. Messaging is that second pillar of marketing. And if you want to be effective with your marketing, you're going to have to be effective with your messaging. And that's why having a messaging document, like I was talking about, my CTA doc, and taking time sometimes to practice saying your messages is going to be what will help you build that comfort level to confidently share the messages when you need to and share messages that will move people to action. Every practice owner should be able to clearly share a couple different types of messages about your services and businesses with others. And the 4 types that you want to be ready to say and share whenever needed are the 4 that I mentioned I have in my CTA doc. So this is my cheat sheet that I use to save and store the messages and marketing ideas. I do it all the time. I use this a lot of times with putting out newsletter content, blog content, social media posts. And this CTA doc actually saves me quite a bit of time because I have various messages already written out. So sometimes I can just copy, paste, and use them. But sometimes, as I said, I will actually practice saying them out loud. So I'm getting comfortable with that. So the 4 types of messages I keep in this document are the calls to action for lead magnets and services. I also have elevator pitches for different audiences. I have one-liners that are really just a shorter version of the elevator pitch. And then that simple introduction of just saying who I am and what I do for a living and what services I offer. So having these written and ready will 100% help save you time with your marketing and help you build that cohesive message because you've done some planning and forethought to what you have there, and then you're using them in your marketing. So let me give you a couple of examples to give you some ideas of these 4 types of messages that you want to make sure you have. And everyone will have a different way to say these messages and make them unique to you. And you will want to do that as well. But you also want to remember that having that clarity so that it speaks to the audience you're talking to or writing to or posting for so that they understand what you're saying. So here's a sample of a call to action for one of my lead magnets. Are you ready to stop spending more time on marketing than you are working with your clients in your dietitian business? Discover a system to streamline your marketing that has been used by hundreds of practitioners and business owners. You'll see exactly how to create less content for your marketing. Grab this free guide, and it comes with some samples of how this works too. And you can get that at pepperatmarketing.com/streamline. And yes, so that actually is a real free guide that I have, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes for you. That is typically something I'm not going to say out loud to people, but it is something that I use all the time in my marketing. It's often found in some of my blog posts or in some of my newsletters and even social media posts. Now, elevator pitch is the second one, and this is going to be one that you might want to have a different variation depending on the kind of audience you might be in front of. So for mine, the example that I have is, hi, I'm Kathy Colaiacovo with pepperatmarketing.com, and I teach private practice owners stuck in an endless cycle of marketing that is going nowhere and show them how to streamline their marketing and get a simple plan in place that is easy to follow and actually gets clients. By following this Thrive marketing method, they learn to simplify and spend less time on marketing, get more results so they can build a thriving practice. And that's one with time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. So that's just kind of one variation of an elevator pitch that I might use sometimes. My one-liner, which is typically a shorter version of that, is simply, hi, I'm Kathy Colaiacovo with pepperatmarketing.com, and I teach private practice owners stuck in an endless cycle of marketing, a system to streamline their marketing with a simple plan in place that is easy to follow and actually gets clients so they can grow their business. And then just saying who I am and what I do for a living. So that simple intro that we were talking about is the fourth one. And I did it earlier, but here it is again. And that one is simply, hey, I'm Kathy Colaiacovo. My business is pepperatmarketing.com, and I offer my clients marketing, coaching, and training services in group programs and one-on-one. So that gives you an example of each of the 4 types of messages that you want to be preparing and having in your CTA doc so that you've got it at the ready. And the couple samples will get you thinking a little bit on how you could create your own messages too. One thing I want to point out with it, you may have noticed, I typically say, hi, I'm Kathy Colaiacovo with pepperatmarketing.com. I do that because it gives people my website to think about right away. But for me, it actually works because the company name that I refer to it as is Pepperat Marketing. It's not the official name, it's Pepperat Services, Inc. But for me, it's a bit of brand recognition by being able to say with pepperatmarketing.com. Depending on your business, that may not fit for you. I do it for me because it just flows well and people understand it. And then I'm also throwing my website out there if they decide to try and, if they want to remember who I am and go back looking for it. So those couple samples should get you started on creating your own. And that is your action step from this episode. Get your own CTA doc started and build up that file of messaging to use in different situations. And you want to remember to use words that are simple and clear, don't cause any confusion with your audience. Clarity is critical when it comes to this messaging because when you confuse them, you're really just going to lose them. You want to be sure that your messaging hits home and moves people to action. And that action could be getting them to sign up for a lead magnet, to contact you for a consult. It could be when you're talking to potential referral partners. It could be when you're just meeting people at, the parent-teacher meeting or association event, anything like that. And you just have to introduce yourself when people ask you that famous question, so what do you do for a living? You never know where your next referral may come from. And that's why you want to always be prepared with messaging that is clear. Now, if you want to test out your messaging and get a quick review, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram and test it out with me. My Insta username is Pepperat Marketing. So just connect with me over there, send me DM, and send me whatever message you've been working on, and I'll give you a review on it and give you my feedback on it if you would like that. And a final tip I wanted to share with you is I actually keep my CTA doc in a Google Drive, and I have the Google Drive app and Docs app on my phone. And this makes it a lot easier for me to need it and access that file whenever I need it, because sometimes I might be out and I want to post something on social media, sort of a spontaneous, what I call persona content. And maybe I want to use one of my messages or one of my CTAs. So I'll be able to just zip into the app on my phone, copy it from the doc that I can access easily, and then go and paste it and post it wherever I need to use it online. Sometimes I might need it to reference a URL if I need that for one of my lead magnets as well. But that's also why I like to keep my lead magnet URLs very short and sweet and to the point so I can remember them and don't need a file to tell me that. So I hope this has helped you think about how you can make sure that your messages are clear and that you're going to be able to move people to action with them. And be sure to check out the show notes from this episode. I'll get you access to the resources that I mentioned in there, and you'll find the show notes at marketingyourprivatepractice.com/8. And I will see you in the next episode. Marketing Your Private Practice with Kathy C. offers you all the show notes and resources mentioned in our podcast on our website at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. You can find and connect with Kathy on Instagram by searching for Pepper It Marketing. We love to hear any feedback you have, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at Pepper It Marketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.